Is it sustainable to think in the way of having to convert and bring back? And if you look at the Lemba, they don't even want to convert. They said, why are we converting to something we're already part of? So it's really important now to bring in the writings of our sages, because we have a consensus for about 3,000 years passed on that everyone agrees on what will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens. What will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens? What will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens?
The point being, around the world, this prophecy started unfolding before our eyes. The awakening and the return of Israel. It's the awakening and the return of Israel. It's the awakening and the return of Israel. Because it says in the days of Messiah. So now we go through the prophets here and we get to the book of Ezekiel in 36 and 37. The dead bones of Israel come back to life. And in 36 and 37 it says, in the days of the Messiah returns, both sticks, Judah and Ephraim, are joined in his hand. So then we get to the New Testament. And it talks about the Jews and the Gentiles, but those Gentiles were returning Israel. Read Peter's address, he says, to the dispersed of Israel, or to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, and James says the same. So this story of the Bible, guys, there was no change of the law at the middle day. It was a continuation of the story of restoration.
On right now is what I call the Great Awakening. And what is a Great Awakening? It's realizing that we've been lied to quite a bit when it comes to a certain state and a certain group of people from the Middle East, even though they're not really from the Middle East, if you know what I'm saying. This situation is getting mainstream attention. A topic that typically would get you banned everywhere is now exploding, absolutely exploding in awareness.
Because, I mean, we was the only people that was looking for a family. We was the only people that was looking for to be a part of somebody's family, to be wanted. I don't care how you look at it. If you are Negro, you felt this loneliness before your awakening. And the people that we ran with was, pretty much us, our family, Negroes. That once we started to wake up, you was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. Wake up!
Waking up the people of the Most High. Got the knowledge to destroy the lies. DNA, history, open eyes. Walk into the darkness and turn on the lights. Wake up, 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 wake up.
What fountain she could drink out of.
Okay.
Now we born into a vote. They literally call it the black vote.
Yeah.
And by the way, we blood of Christ. We
Right.
blood of Moses.
Right.
We're not just a color in a crayon box. And if we knew that, who we really were, we'd treat each other differently.
Message.
We blood of Christ. We
Right.
blood of Moses.
Right.
We're not just a color in a crayon box. And if we knew that, who we really were, we'd treat each other differently. We'd treat ourselves differently. So when you say, I'm black and I'm proud, but of what? What concept are we understanding? They say, go see the African History Museum. Why do they start when the boats came? Why don't they start with the drums?
When we was kings.
No, they don't want it, but we are kings.
Mm-hmm.
But the 400 years doesn't have to deal with slavery. It has to deal with the Bible. It has to deal with us being disobedient to God.
Right.
And that's why we farm land that isn't our own. Record labels, the NBA, Hollywood. These boys be scared. They be sitting there. Michael B. Jordan be telling my cousin, like, man, I want to do what Ye do, but I'm just, I'm right here. Or,
A lot of people are waking up now.
May 3rd, 2020, on this episode of Taylor Talks Live with Fantasia and Kendall, the couple shares how they feel about the mistreatment and racism that exist here in the United States, while also acknowledging their journey to discovering who they truly are as Israelites.
Change, the type of lasting change that we as a people desire, will not come from outside sources until it has taken root and has been birthed from within each and every one of us first. By that we mean that yes, there are clearly laws in place that need to be amended, oppressive systems that need to be disrupted, racial double standards that must be uprooted, racist cops that need to be exposed, removed, and charged accordingly, media propagated motives that can no longer be given access into our homes and mindsets at the cost of our dollars. We are beyond tired, enraged, and unwilling to accept any more excuses regarding equality, which is ordained by God and cannot be delegated and rationed out by any man. Inside of a nation that was built on our backs, our creativity, and only repaid with unjustified bloodshed. And while our country is once again facing unrest and social turbulence, we also cannot allow this opportunity to pass without shedding more light on these current events and address the unspoken hard truth that some seem unwilling to address on their platforms. Our covenant with our Heavenly Father was established when He empowered us Black people with the name Israel and labeled us as His peculiar people. And the etymology of peculiar means belonging exclusively to one being, special and particular. And He also laid out the blessings and curses that we can expect if we chose to disobey His commandments. While we are hurting, exhausted, and boiling with emotion, we must also understand that our opposition not only knows our true identity, but have also become masters of our weaknesses and intentionally structure systems to entangle us in sin, which is the only force on this earth that can prevent us from operating in our true power. Sadly, they seem to know more about us than we do ourselves at times.
But I mean it like that. Like, we don't want no answers. We want change. We want to be treated like we're supposed to be treated. But because now I've educated myself and I understand who I am, biblically, like spiritually, the true Israelite.
Nasty.
Because now I've educated myself and I understand who I am, biblically, like spiritually, the true Israelite, I'm not sure if change is ever going to come on that end. So now my thing is I'm pleading that change will come amongst us, amongst God's chosen one. I had somebody come up on my page the other day and was like, and I never read my comments, but since all this has been going on, I kind of read because sometimes I have other celebrities or other people hit me in DMs and stuff I normally don't check to ask me to be a part of stuff or just checking up on me, and we're checking up on each other. And so I saw the person say, we are all God's children. And yeah, we are. But He has His 12 tribe, His chosen one, and I know who I am. And that's what I was talking about. And so in order to know what I was talking about, you got to study that to show thyself. You got to study. We got to get in the book. We cannot depend on the law of the land. We cannot depend on the government. We cannot depend on certain things. We got to depend on the book. What's the book? That's the word. That's the Bible.
And I can assure you that DNA doesn't lie. And I can assure you that DNA doesn't lie. And I can assure you that DNA doesn't lie.
Wow, guys, that's what we have today. Welcome. And I come to you now. I got one on board with me, a new friend, but a long lost brother. We found that out. And I'm just call you Pine Hill Productions. And Pine Hill, I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, shalom, peace and blessings, family. Brother Berean, thank you for having me. My name is Lyle Gibson from Kansas City area. I, in education, been involved with education for about 28 years, give or take. But also along the journey, I've been heavily involved in genealogy and family history. And through that process, I got involved with DNA kind of early, 2004.
And that's what we're going to get into today, because I really, I hope everybody had, did you see that testimony from Fantasia and her husband before?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I saw it through what you had posted.
It came out in, I think, 2020.
Okay.
And that's during the time when everybody was up in arms over George Floyd murder and everything. And Yah uses certain things to wake us up. And a lot of people during that time, since, the world stopped because the pandemic and everything was set still. So people had to do other things to, keep themselves busy. So people had to read, TV got boring and people had to read. So I think they did the same thing you and I are going to talk about today, about going back and reading from the scriptures. She said biblically and spiritually, she found out who she were. But also, I think her husband did some DNA testing too. So for those of you who were happen to be on board with us last night on We Woke Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what we talked about that last night too. But today, we're going to give you some more information that, guys, they knew this information. They knew this information. We're now just coming aboard. We're just now finding out. And we're going to try to help you find out all the facts you need to find out on this DNA thing. So, Brother Pioneer, now you gave your name. So that's the first time you told me your name.
Lyle.
Brother Lyle, you want to go ahead and no, you were in education also. I was in ministry. I did education also, but you're in the higher education. I was with secondary.
Okay. Yeah, it's I think those involved in education, it's such an important role, because it's about helping our students, no matter what grade level, no matter what disabilities children may face. The whole thing, man, it's so important what educators do from K through 12 all the way up through the secondary level, post-secondary levels.
And it's also, being that after doing it for like 18, 20 years, you look back on some of the stuff that we were taught, and it came just like the same thing when we came to the church. Everything we was taught was not everything that was true. So,
yeah, I think, in the way I look at it, I kind of couch things. Oftentimes, when we look at traditions, like our ancestors, grandparents, great-grandparents, they were taught based on who taught them.
Yes.
And they passed that information on to us. One of the things too, and I'll mention, I grew up Kojic. I know you're familiar with Kojic.
Oh yes, Church of God in Christ.
But one of the things, and I did a documentary on how Kojic spread from Tennessee and then came up into the Kansas area. It went all over the country. But one of the things I focused on, and I had a question, Bishop Mason always wanted to go back to what his grandmother had. And that's been well documented. And I'm almost wondering, I just asked these questions, what more did his grandmother know about ancient Israelite heritage? And we can ask that question in general across the board with all of our enslaved ancestors, because remember, they brought over with them tidbits of information, a little bit here, a little bit there. But as you know, our culture got meshed with other cultures. The dominant culture came in and influenced things. But I've always wondered, what did our ancestors know?
And I'm with you on that, because I know I listened to Pastor Kelly talked about his grandma telling him who he was, because she did know about the Gullah people down in South Carolina, and also his great uncle who started a church in the Hebrew writing on the pews. I also got an opportunity to speak to a gentleman that's down in where I'm from Mississippi, who told me that his grandma told him since he was a little boy that he was an Israelite.
Mm-hmm.
When he was a little boy. Now that means some of our people during slavery kept that.
Exactly.
But and we also I shared in a video too that there's a place outside of I think 40, 50 miles from Richmond, Hebrew Hill, where that was settled by a group of people who called themselves Israelites.
Exactly. And remember, even other folks called them Israelites. Yeah.
And there's certain placards you can find online where when they were selling us as property, they first called us Hebos.
Mm-hmm.
Hebos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not Ebo, Hebos, like Hebrew. Yeah. So
right.
they knew who we were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's get into how you and yourself came along into this awakening as educator, as a young man growing up in Missouri?
Yeah. So, and let me clarify that for anybody on the Missouri side watching. I'm actually from the Kansas side of the metro, which is
I just started a few, didn't
not. You know,
I?
I might have some of my friends, call me out on that, but no, I grew up on the Kansas side. Actually, my community, I learned very early in grade school. It was part of the Underground Railroad. It was an extension of the western part of the Underground Railroad.
Really?
Yes, the Quindaro community.
Oh, wow.
And so there's just a fascinating history on that. But, I grew up just typical Midwestern kid, but I would spend a lot of time in Arkansas where both of my parents' families were from. That's where my parents are originally from. And I can remember some of the old folks. My great grandmother's brother, I knew him quite well. But one of the things that really struck me, in addition to the family history, were the naming patterns. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But naming patterns were so important, and sometimes these unusual names. But I would say I just kind of, went on, advanced like everyone else, finished high school, went into the military.
Oh, so
And
you're military?
yes, sir. I did 4 years in the Air Force. And I was stationed overseas back in 88, 89. That really was the drop in the bucket getting into Black history. And I was stationed in Greece. And so I just tried to absorb as much as I could. But here's an interesting thing. Greece was kind of what I call that Mediterranean corridor. So you got lots of people from Africa that were living in Greece at the time. And I remember these brothers from Egypt, talking to them, and they said something that just stuck with me to this day. So this is back in 1988.
1988.
And it's 2025.
Okay.
They said, "You and I are brothers." Now, the Lyle in 1988 didn't know how to process that. But
now the people from Egypt was native from Egypt, right?
Yes.
Melanated.
Melanated with what we call kinky hair.
All right.
So, same thing. There was a brother from Libya, melanated. His afro was better than the Jackson 5 afros. So, I'm seeing all of this, but I'm not there yet, if that makes sense. So it's taken me a long time to process. But, you fast forward, I'm getting all these little nuggets in life. Go to grad school. I want to do history. Looking at my own family history, how to contextualize that information into a narrative. And then I start teaching, and it's still all of these nuggets that are being dropped. And then fast forward, George Floyd. And I can remember asking Yah, why? Why? Everybody that looks like me, why? And honestly, man, I just literally fell to my knees. I'm just going to be honest with you. Fell to my knees and just ask why. And it was a year later, 2021. Good friend of mine who I create documentary film content with, he said, "Hey, Lyle, I'm going to Minneapolis on my birthday in September." I said, "Hey, man, that's your birthday. My birthday is very close." And so I went up with him and I said, "Hey, we got to make sure we go to the George Floyd Memorial." So it's about a 7-hour road trip. And so he says, "Hey, I got something I want you to listen to." And so he introduces me to Black history in the Bible, Dante Ford's.
Yeah.
So, Brother Berean, that was the beginning of the birth pains. If I can
birth pains. I like that.
Use that metaphor.
Yeah.
So, the contraction started to happen for me in 2021. And so listening to that, I was like, okay. Then all of a sudden, once we get to about 2023, late 2023 into 2024, I'm starting to listen to Berean Scholar, Pastor Kelly, and then they were talking about the DNA. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been doing DNA since 2004. Let me go back and look.
So you'd already done your DNA years ago, huh?
Years ago. Years ago. And so that was the beginning to my awakening. And, probably like many others, I had read the Bible before, but going back and really taking that deep dive, I started to say, hey, I missed some things. I missed Deuteronomy 28. I missed Zephaniah 3:10. But now rereading scripture, you start to get a clear understanding of Yah's promise to his people.
Right.
And that's what literally brings me to this point. Now I tell people I'm still in my infancy stage. I'm still growing, still learning. I've been born, but still growing and still learning.
Yeah, see, and I know how you feel, because it seems like every day, the more you dig, the more you read, you find out more layers of lies you got to pull back, more layers of twisting the word out of the Hebraic mindset into a Western theological mindset. You're right. That's like a daily thing.
Yeah, it's a process, because like you mentioned, you have to unlearn what you have learned, reteach yourself, especially when you're talking about language, the proper name of Yah, understanding the etymology of languages, especially English language coming from a Germanic language, very young. Hey, there was no J, so it's a lot of things that we have to learn along the way. And like I said, the beautiful part for me, it's been a wonderful experience to this point, and I just continue to look forward to growing and learning more.
So when you got at this time, you said after you got on your knees and you prayed, why, Lord, this is happening? And I think a lot of people during that time, during the Jordan Force, said the same thing. I remember Gesa Holder saying that in her testimony. She's cried out, "You why?"
Yeah.
And I remember I remember exactly where I was that day, because everybody was off.
Yeah.
And we were doing it. We was on a cookout. I was on the back deck with a grill, and my wife said, "What?" and started screaming. So I ran in the house, see what's going on, and I saw it.
Yeah.
And that same thing happened. And then the young man, Orlando Costello, I think, the gentleman that was pulled over.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was with his sister the week before in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow.
His sister was a doctor. I had a great time. She was a great person. We talked everything about some nutritional thing. At the time, I was doing on the health kick and doing well, and great person. This 2 weeks later, it was 2 weeks later, they gave me her name, and then I get a phone call saying, "Daryl, that was so-and-so's sister that was on TV."
Yeah.
I mean, that's so-and-so's brother who got shot in the I mean, it's still here. I still feel it today.
Pastor,
Yeah, innocent man.
Brother Berean, if I could say real quick, these things, these modern day lynchings, remind me of a colonial statute from Virginia, the act to casually kill a slave. Now, that title alone, what does it mean how do you casually kill someone? But the legislation basically established that you could kill your slave and not face any prosecution. This was a colonial statute out of Virginia.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage anyone who's listening, the act to casually kill a slave, you can see a transcript of it. And I remember talking to my mom, and asking her, and mom told me, she said, God this is what she said. She was just using the term God. She said, God's going to have something in store for Black people. Now, this was like right around the time of George Floyd, and even before, because mom grew up during, segregation. But towards the end of her death, or her life, I should say, I was sharing with her every tidbit of information from the awakening. And I could just see on her face how she was just so excited, just to learn all of this information and then to contextualize what's really in store for Yah's people.
You said about this the casual killing the slave. It took how many years? 100 years for them to 2022 to sign the Anti-Lynching Act.
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah. And
it didn't mean anything. In fact, here's another one. They named after the riot during the time of the Black Lives Matter. They called this the movement Antifa, with Antifa meaning anti-fascism. It's not a group. Right. They named that a terrorist organization.
Mm-hmm.
The KKK is still a nonprofit organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people have the Antifa murdered, lynched, hung? But anyway,
I know. It's and here's another thing too. Many people probably have a lynching victim in their family that they may not know about. But the Equal Justice Initiative Center in Montgomery, they've been able to document, based on historical research, a lot of African Americans who were lynched. I have, I think in my family, 1, 2, 3 individuals that were lynched.
They kicked me out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you kept going because they kicked me out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We're back.
Yeah. Just like last night, man, this information is powerful.
We start touching on a touchy subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let's talk about after you said you prayed and you got into this awakening and you heard about us doing DNA. What happened then?
Okay, so I went back and started to look closely at my DNA, and surprisingly, it was aligning with the ancient Israelite migration into Africa. We kind of clustered that with the Bantu expansion. And one of the first DNA tests I did was my mitochondrial DNA. And I will say I was at a conference. It was actually a Cherokee Freedmen conference in Oklahoma. Rick Kittles was there. He's one of the founders of African Ancestry. He's the chief scientist, geneticist with African Ancestry. He was there, and he had offered anybody who wants to, do a DNA test for free, feel free. We can go ahead and get you set up. This was like in 2004. So that was the first one that I did. And then from there, because, I'm an academe, I've always appreciated science and learning. I had no problem with it. I know some people, have concerns about it. But what I tell people, do you know the chain of custody for every sample that you've given at the doctor's office? Because we've given so many different samples, we really don't know the full chain of custody. If the government wants you,
they got you.
They got you,
Yeah.
And so I really took a deep dive. And so I did the full mitochondrial DNA. And it's 3 different versions you can do, region 1, region 2, or you can do a full sequence. Now, understand with mitochondria, mothers pass it on to their children, but only daughters can continue to pass it on. So I have the mitochondrial DNA from my mother all the way back, that direct line of women thousands of years ago. It came back L3. And I matched the closest population I matched was the Bamileke people out of Cameroon. But what I learned when I started doing more research, the Bamileke people were not indigenous to West Africa. They were not indigenous to Cameroon. They came from the Nile Valley. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Whoa.
Okay. So this is a West African group that originally came from the Nile Valley region. But Brother Berean, once I started researching more, many of our known West African groups are not indigenous to West Africa. They're coming from the East.
Right.
And so I'm looking at this closely and everything starts to make sense. So we fast forward a few years, and then Family Tree DNA launches what they call an autosomal DNA test. And so I tested, and then I decided to test my paternal grandfather's first cousin. Now, the reason why I wanted to test her, she was the last living of my grandfather's first cousin. My grandfather was deceased. His siblings were deceased. He had one first cousin still living. But the reason why I wanted to test her grandmother, which is my second great grandmother, was reputed to have been a woman of color who was mixed. Now, they used the term part Jewish. And so I know part Jewish. That's what the family said. And so when we got her results, her mitochondrial DNA was L0. And so L0, when the scientists basically map out everything, you got mitochondrial Eve, which has no nomenclature. Then the first one that they've documented is L0. So that's the
very first woman.
That's the oldest branch. So if any woman or anybody in your family has L0, you know that's very old.
Yeah.
But her autosomal DNA surprised me. It came back mostly sub-Saharan Africa out of Nigeria. But then there was 23.6, 24% what they labeled Middle Eastern Jew. So I said, wait a minute, what's going on? So I emailed the president of the company at the time. He's a European Jewish guy. I emailed him. I said, hey, can you explain more? Where is this coming from? Because my ancestors were enslaved. First question when he responded back, is your family Sephardic? Now, mind you, this is like 2010, 2011. I'm not in the awakening yet.
Right.
But I knew about the history of Sephardism. But I said, I don't think so. I'm reaching out to you because you guys are the experts. And so I kept that like on the back burner, didn't let it go anywhere. Then I started testing my dad, my dad's brother, other family members. Let's see what's really going on. But at the same time, I was researching these companies because this is important for everyone who's taking a DNA test. Understand what that company's reference database is.
Right.
Reference and sample databases are going to be different across companies. That's why you may see similarities, but you may also see some differences.
And to fully explain that, guys, when you do like what 23andMe, they used to be, they only do with people who are alive right now in certain groups in that area. African ancestors, I know, do a whole lot more groups, whole lot more tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know if they do do they do the both sides, male and female?
Yeah, they do
paternal and maternal. Paternal and maternal. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, they do what they call a patriclan and a matriclan.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: what I tell people about even African ancestry, melanated people throughout the continent moved.
Yes.
And they also, father may be of this ethnic group, mother may be of another ethnic group. And then the children sometimes may go after an ethnic group of the father, ethnic group of the mother. And one of the things I did, I've asked several of my students from the continent, give me a breakdown of your family's ethnicity. And in every single case, oh yeah, grandmother is this, grandfather is this, maternal grandmother is this. And I'm like, wow, so you're talking about multi-ethnic groups of people, but in our Western thought, we only think one. You know,
see, that's the mind hack they did on us.
Mm-hmm.
In every race in humanity, whether it's Asian, Hispanic, you have different groups of Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
You have different groups of Asian. You cannot call a Chinese person a Korean, a Korean person Japanese.
Right.
They're different.
Different.
But since we've been so pushed down, you just say black for everything, you know, on this planet, and that's not true.
Right.
And you're right; those groups do move and match. Because I found in my DNA that, you know, certain sides you have Yoruba and then other places you have Igbo, and you have Limba. So they all came together. So
yeah, and I think that's what anybody doing DNA, just make sure you understand those historical nuances to help you understand, okay, I got my matches, got my results. This is what it means. Another thing too, let me just say this real quick on genetic diversity. And I talked to a biologist about this. There's more genetic diversity within the continent of Africa than outside of Africa.
Yes.
Now, people need to let that sink in. So, and I'm going to give this kind of crazy scenario. If there's a cataclysmic event that wipes out everybody outside of Africa, and even the coastal regions of Africa, there's enough genetic diversity within Africa to repeat the process.
To repopulate the earth.
Yeah.
And see, a lot of people don't want to admit that, because in fact, that's what Rebecca Kahn, we shared a video, Pastor Kelly shared a lot, and I shared with her research. She found every type, every strand, every diversity in African America from that one mitochondria Eve.
Yeah. So what does that tell you? Genesis. You know,
Genesis.
From the dust of the ground, you know, Yah created us.
Amen.
Yeah.
Now, you told me when you got your DNA and you could test yourself, your father, your mother, and some other of your siblings, but you pointed to certain places back towards the Levant.
Right. So if you could pull up, do you have that PDF?
Yeah. There we go.
So you can go ahead and just go through. All right. So this is my mitochondrial DNA, and so this is what
I'm gonna make it bigger.
Okay. This is what Family Tree DNA has done. So they have scientific databases to compare, and then also people who have tested. So this is kind of a combination. But if you look at the darker the colors, that's where more of my DNA connections are on that. And so you'll see all the different, you know, Bantu regions, especially when you talk about Chad, Mali, Madagascar, Angola. Angola is important, and I'll come to that here in just a minute. But then when you look at the diaspora, you go to Brazil, you go to parts of Central America, South America. So you see all of these connections of people that have that L3. Can you go to the next slide?
On this, I see it's spread from Central America, and this is all the places where we were dispersed to.
Yeah, the four corners.
Yeah.
And even there's another tiny little blip, Kuwait.
Kuwait. Up
Yeah,
here.
yeah. If you look
I
at
see.
Saudi Arabia, that tiny little blip. So, we were scattered to the four corners.
Right. Go to the next slide.
Yep. And so here's my grandfather's first cousin. And this is what I was alluding to earlier, where I really started to question, hey, how does this science work? What's really going on here? Where is this so-called Middle Eastern Jewish coming from? Now, here's the thing, the DNA doesn't lie. The DNA doesn't lie, but how the DNA is presented can be manipulated. And that's what we have to be mindful of. And that's why it's best to do a little bit of homework if you decide to go down this route. And so, once again, this represents my dad's paternal line. So we can go to the next one.
Next one. Okay.
And so this is that same first cousin. This is her mitochondrial DNA. So what she got from her mother.
Wow.
And once again, you see the lighter all over. The lighter shades versus the more darker shades. But let's focus on Africa and what I call Northeast Africa, because geographically Arabia and Israel are part of North Africa. So we see the Levant, the Nile Valley, all the way down to Lake Victoria. So, Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, over into Angola, Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin. So we see all of these places. Get over into the Americas, Brazil, Suriname, all of these different regions where
I wish I had my pointer here, because I wish I could bring my pointer, because what you're saying matched some of the history that I've read with the dark red over here doing where the Mali Empire was, and how they went over to the Americas.
Yeah,
man, this is history, guys. This is history.
Yeah, and so just remember that your DNA doesn't lie, but we have to stay on top of the interpretation. And I always tell people it's best to try to start back early 2000s, before they started to kind of change the narrative on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that'll give you kind of a good foundation. And so in short, with this L0A1, this is, part of that ancient Israelite Bantu expansion going across in different regions of Africa. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, these are my 23andMe autosomal results. And so let's look at Africa. So all the shades of purple. And so we coming from East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, on into the Congo, on into Angola. Then we kind of jump up over there to Nigeria, parts of Ghana, Ivory Coast. But then you got that North African component. Now, I always keep North Africa in North Africa. Technically, the Middle East is a modern term that's used to try to, I believe, to throw people off. But look at the North African component. That's important. That's very important, because throughout the dispersal of ancient Israel, they were going to different parts of the known world, to include North Africa, but also into parts of Central Africa, and then into West Africa.
And to add to that, the dispersal he's talking about is, I know, brother, but some of the people we talked about the us getting kicked out of some of our people getting kicked out of Spain and Portugal and shipped down to the western coast. down to where you said the slave coast of the Gold Coast, where Judah and everything. But the northern Africa, a lot of our people escaped there from Assyria, from the first time we come. A lot of the Hebrews came through that area and landed in that area. So the dispersion was over different times. That was way before the 70 AD dispersion. So
exactly, and thank you for that. And that's important to note. Our people were always moving, you know, at different periods of history. They were moving into different places, and so it's important to know the biblical foundation, the biblical history of our people, and then start to look at the secular part of history to fill in the gaps. Now, you mentioned, you know, with the Portuguese, that's very important. And I'll mention that when I was in Senegal, spent about 5 weeks there, and we learned a lot about Senegalese culture and then the development of slavery as it was, you know, headed towards the New World. But one of the things that we were learning is how the Portuguese were the architects throughout West Africa for setting up that slave system. They're considered foundational because wherever you go in different parts of West Africa where they have a slave coast, a castle, a fort, the Portuguese were there for first. And so they laid that foundation. And you're right, from the Inquisition, not only were they deporting Negro Jews to different parts, documented in history to different parts of West Africa, there was also a dispersal out of Hispaniola, Portuguese in Spain, into some of those northern regions of Africa. Okay. Also, too, it's kind of difficult to see, but my Nigerian does have Igbo connections, and the Igbo also are part of, you know, the scattered tribes of Israel. Okay, you go to the next slide.
Okay, let me see. Somehow they here we go. I see what happened. Next slide.
Okay, and then MyHeritage. Now, interesting thing about MyHeritage, this isn't an Israeli company, but as you may be familiar, there are a lot of restrictions on how you can access consumer DNA testing in Israel. A lot of restrictions. But with this, you'll see, if we focus on Africa and then up into Spain, you see that entire portion of Spain is shaded because they call that my Iberian DNA. And, you know, within the context of our history, we know that Judah was in the Iberian Peninsula. They were there. Our people were there. You also see Kenya. You also see the majority of West Africa shaded in. And so once again, it's just kind of speaking to the migration patterns of the ancient Israelite people. Okay, next one. Okay, and then this one is my family.
So I got a pointer now.
Okay, this one is my family tree DNA. So if you see all of the areas shaded in Africa,
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
There you go.
So all of the areas that are shaded in Africa, all of North Africa is shaded in. East Africa is shaded in. And once again, when we talk about that Bantu expansion, you know, from Kenya, Tanzania, over to Zambia, Angola.
And there's known tribes in each one of these shaded areas.
Exactly.
Right, because some of these areas match my DNA. Exactly. Angola, the Kenya, the Tanzania, That's where the Limba tribes is at. Yeah. Yeah,
Ex-
this is good.
exactly. And so once again, uh, like we had the discussion on We Woke Now last night, and then how you had mentioned to me also, AI is they're trying to change things, and we have to be very persistent and knowledgeable that our DNA is ancient Israelite DNA.
And there was some aspect before they hacked AI when I analyzed my DNA. I think Pastor Kelsey had the same result, and I've done several people. DNA was showing their percentages of European DNA was in their results, and some of them, like I see on yours, the upper purple right here. Some of that comes from the rape and stuff we had going on in our people during the time of bondage. Because look at the area that is circled. We know who comes from that area.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's the Ukraine Caucasus area where we know who comes from that area.
Exactly.
So in that, when I saw that, I said, "Whoa!" And that's you're about the third DNA I saw that there was some of that DNA in our people.
Yep. And let me just say too, that's how I'm able to connect with people on these DNA platforms if I know that there is a certain genetic signature coming in, and I know how to place them within the family. But you are absolutely right, and like I said, it's when we look at the history, we have to contextualize the different aspects of our own family histories to better understand, hey, this is really what's happening on the global stage. Okay, can you hit the next slide?
Yes, sir. With too money. There you go.
Okay, so this is my Ancestry autosomal results. And remember, each testing company has a different reference database. That's why some populations may look a little bit different. But here you'll see, of course, the Mozambique down in the southeast, Angola, Zambia. That's the Bantu, which the Bantu is coming from the ancient Israelite expansion, the migration. Then you go into West Africa, Guinea, Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, Mali. Once again, these different, Israelite populations, consistent migrations throughout the centuries, consistent migrations. And as I've mentioned earlier, many of these ethnic groups where they have names today, like the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Akan, the Bamileke, many of them were not indigenous to West Africa, but were coming from Israel through the Nile Valley, then making their way south and west.
And let me interject this, guys, because y'all know the fables they told us about who we were and how we got here. That we were just grabbed from Africa, randomly shipped on a ship because our people sold us in slavery. That was the story was told. But look at this map. Why do his map, my map, other people's map always look the same where they grab it, where certain people are taking? There's certain groups they knew to take. That's in itself is one of the things I haven't looked at. These areas are the same on most of the maps I'm seeing. Certain area where, if you look at the DNA result we went over last night, it lists the tribes, and most of the tribes, it was like about 15 of them. You got spots about where all those tribes at.
Yeah, and Brother Berean, let me add this from a historical standpoint. The slave traders knew exactly what they were doing.
Yep.
And so, like, if you look at this map, There's a place that stretches from Zambia into Angola all the way up to the Central Republic of Africa. On a map from the 16th century from an Italian map maker, Land of Judah. And now it's in Latin, but it basically translates Land of Judah. This is in the 1500s. So we need to ask fundamental questions. Why would an Italian map maker in the 1500s label this area as Land of Judah? They knew exactly who we were, how we had been scattered, why we had been scattered. They knew. And
now you're talking about right in here.
Yes.
And that same time map maker, and I think, and I've seen this map, and you can find that on blackhistoryinthebible.com. It had this area also with a little paragraph that said populated by Jewish tribes.
Yes.
And this is the same place that you'll see on the map 1569 map, Negro land.
Yeah.
This area, Mali, with Senegal and everything was in this area. This is, this is where people went and settled.
Yeah. Now, two, I don't want to digress too much, but I encourage anyone listening, go back to the creation story in Genesis. Our people were migrating back home. Eden was right there, literally where we're looking. And if you look at the description, is based on the Bible, and you have to be very careful. So I would encourage you to go online, get the 1611 King James, compare that to a 19th century Greek Septuagint translated into English, and you get a better understanding of where the Garden of Eden was.
There was in one of the maps where you see right above Ethiopia was a place that was named Havilah.
Mm-hmm.
It's in his name. Eritrea, an area. This is Havilah.
Yeah.
And if you hear the description of the Bible where the rivers are, the Nile and everything runs in this area.
Yeah.
Brother. And then you go back to where the genetic researchers, when they track back the DNA, it all tracks back in this area.
Yeah. And think about this, Brother Beran. It said Yah had planted a garden east in Eden. So he's already given you a sense of direction. So where you just pointed, that's east. So Eden was somewhere in the central part of Africa. Because there was one principal river that flowed and it divided into 4 parts. So like I said, I would encourage people to go back and really read that. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
So here I just there's a tool called GEDmatch, and it's a nice utility where you can run additional comparisons. And what I have here, for my mother and father, we're not descendant from Limba. We share DNA with the Limba. So that DNA we share is part of that Levantine Afro-Asiatic DNA. And so where you have your cursor Limba derived 13.4, that means that is in the moderate range of sharing DNA with the Limba. Now, mom, interestingly, shares, her number is lower, so she shares more than what my dad's number is higher, so he's kind of moving away a little bit distantly. But both of them share DNA, overlapping segments of DNA with the Limba people. And so once again, it's speaking, the DNA doesn't lie. It's speaking to our shared ancestry with all of these different Israelite groups that migrated into different parts of Africa.
And I see the DNA, Limba, Bantu, Mandinka, Sub-Saharan Africa, ancient. Well, that's that L0. Yoruba,
Biaka Pygmy,
Baka Pygmy, and Ethiopian Jew, Ethiopian. Yeah, you be Israelite, brother.
Yeah, it's there. And even without GEDmatch, and this is DAS that you have up now, even without GEDmatch, just in the other DNA platforms, it's there. The DNA doesn't lie.
And it's good because you know what you're looking for.
Exactly.
And guys, this is a GEDmatch. If you had done your DNA with any other company, you could download your raw results and upload it to GEDmatch. And I did mine free.
Yeah.
When I uploaded it, I had to pay for my DNA results and all that stuff. But to get it to GEDmatch, you can run these tests free. And if you want to reach out to brother Lionel, he'll be able to give you some instruction. That's a video I think we did a couple of times online that shows how we did it. Beneha, I think he walks through the actual companies you can do it. So
yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of everything you just mentioned. That's the instructions are there. And then too, I would say, they're probably through social media. There's some user-friendly platforms where people can share, people can learn. So yeah, it's the information is out there. And I think was someone says, DNA is identical. Just with the Oracle 22, when you compare mom and dad, you're going to see a lot of similarities with that. And then I think just in general with other Israelite descendants, you're going to see those similarities as well.
I think this is the sister that she wanted you to get in touch with you about her DNA, because that's what I did the last testimony.
Okay.
So
yeah, please. My email is available. So
I'm gonna shoot her your information.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay.
Now, can you make this one a little smaller, because I want everybody to get okay.
Here we
so
go.
Now this, Brother Berean, this was like, that home run, 3 seconds left on the clock and you get a 3-pointer. Patrick Mahomes, when he was healthy, 13 seconds left on the clock, marched down the field for about 80 yards to score a touchdown to win the game.
You're from Kansas, boy.
So I did Family Tree DNA's Big Why. This is what's important. So when you do 23andMe, you get a haplogroup prediction. They scan a few SNPs and say, okay, based on what we're seeing, we're going to put you in this E1B1A. I decided through Family Tree DNA to take it a deeper step, because they test 700 markers, not just a few. 700 markers. So far, that's the largest number of any of the companies that are out there. And so when I got my results back, I'm E1B1A. But if you look at everything that's in purple, and then there's a little bitty dot in the northern part of Arabia, southern part of Israel, that particular SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism.
You want to enlarge a little bit?
You can enlarge it just a little bit.
Let me see.
So SNPs, that's what I call them. That gives you more of a defined outlook of your DNA. STRs, short tandem repeats, help you to connect who your closer relatives may be. And when I say closer relatives, I'm still talking 500 years, a genealogical time frame, 500 years to 1 year. But my particular SNP, this was what really shocked me. My particular SNP was formed around 550 BCE. So we're talking about 150 years or so before Lakesh.
Whoa.
And you see it right there in the Levant.
Right here.
Exactly. Then from there, some of the men continued into the eastern part of Arabia, back into the Nile Valley. Here's what's important. My particular Y line didn't make it back into West Africa until around 1500 AD.
Wow. So they actually track the migration of your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so we were in the Nile Valley during Israelite captivity in Egypt. Someone in my paternal line, I don't know who, that person left Egypt with the Exodus, and then they were there in the kingdom, and then some of them continued to move a little bit, and then all of a sudden a new SNP. And think of the change in your DNA as a mutation. And that's how we're able to track all of these different signatures, all of these different haplogroups. And then I had a picture up here of my great grandfather Zachariah. The name is so appropriate. Zachariah Gibson.
Yeah. Zachariah, yeah. The AFI here, but it was Yah.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Wow. Wow.
And you know, I said, you know what? Abba Yah left a message in our DNA.
Yes.
He left a message, man. And it's
my people who are called by my name. And he's called by his name.
Yep. And at the top, Brother Berean, so you know, E1B1A, that's kind of like the beginning of the nomenclature, how our branch is named. But what I have in parentheses, the E-BY137213,
right here.
That was formed 1550 BC. Then here's an interesting thing. This is the power of DNA. When I upgraded my son's Y-DNA, he actually, his DNA, there was a new SNP, EFTG 14385, and we are descendants now. So that's why I'm waiting on my dad's results to come back. He's deceased, but I still have him in the database, and I'm praying that there's still enough sample where they can get his upgraded to the big Y. And then I reached out to a paternal first cousin because I want to see if my son and I are the new variant of this group. And does my cousin have it, or does he still have the one ending in 7213?
And let me add something to you right here, because after your awakening, you found out that your DNA and where your people came from the actual place where the Most High spoke to Abraham and promised it to his descendants. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But you had to take effort to go ahead and find this. Mm-hmm. You had to take effort and expense to go ahead and find this DNA. I'm glad you said what you said at the beginning, that a lot of people say, I don't want them messing with my DNA. But like you said, they got your DNA. If you ever had, they got your DNA.
They do.
So that's not the problem. In fact, they want you to be scared for that, to find this out. They don't want you finding this out.
Exactly.
But you not only did yourself, you did your mom, your dad, your son. You are trying to. You actually put effort to find out your heritage. And most of us today who are hearing this haven't even thought about it.
Right.
And we are the only people who are in that situation.
Yeah.
Most people being that I was in college and had opportunity to be around a lot of people who were not melanated, they know their place, they know their town, their where the people came, what side of Italy they came from. I couldn't say anything because all I knew I was a slave one time.
Exactly.
And now the information and now the awakening is happening.
Yeah.
And it's time for us to be aware like this. I'm saying it because you knowing this is getting me excited. I know just seeing all this information. This is who we are. This is how our people got to where they were before we were kidnapped, before we were apprehended during the translated slave war.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing this, brother.
Yeah. And one more thing, I didn't put it on the screen, but you can leave this slide up. I'm branching out because I got a cousin who represents the direct male line of my maternal great grandfather. And it's E1B1A, but that particular SNP, that identity is clustered in the northern part of Yemen and come down a little bit towards Ethiopia, but it's that part of Yemen, the northwest part of Yemen, close to Ethiopia and Saudi Arabia. And I give it my own label, the Red Sea corridor of my Y-DNA. That's on my maternal, so my grandmother's grandfather. And so we are the people of the book.
Yes, we are.
And it's just in there. Now, here, let me just say this. Okay, because we know slavery happened. And so there may be some of our brothers that carry a haplogroup that's not E1B1A. It may be Europe or more associated with European populations. Well, your mother's line still carries either that LO, L1, L3, possibly. You'd have to test to make sure. But and right there, yeah.
Your first memory of your family, the farthest back is 500.
Right. 550 BC. Yeah. And how we classify it, because I want the listeners to understand, based on my SNP, when my SNP was formed, 550 BC with a man in that region.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hallelujah. That is awesome.
But
folks, they don't get any better than that.
Yeah. All praises to the Most High, because the awakening is here and you either embrace it or you don't.
Yeah.
But it's here.
And it's just like what it says, the DNA is going to tell you. Now, and just like I said, they can manipulate it, and they are trying to manipulate it. And some people are telling me they're getting back and then things that they're going back on their DNA chart and seeing things change around. But once you find your information, take a screenshot of it. Exactly. Once you find the truth, save it, because don't trust them.
Exactly.
They're going to try to keep it from you, but we know, and more of us are finding out. Yeah. But most of all, brother, you got this to pass down to your son.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your son don't have to be like you and I was when we grew up. We didn't know who we are. We knew that, well, we'll study about our ancestors in February because we're going to talk about slavery. That's all I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like I said, the awakening is here, and I would encourage people, to really consider doing your DNA test, but also get into the Word.
Yes.
Get into the Word, because when you go back to the Word and you allow Abba Yah to really flow through you, open your heart, open your mind to really understand the Scripture, you're going to see yourself in His Word.
Man, you trace your family. I'm glad I titled this, and you trace your family way back to 500 BC.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Now, I want everybody to know, I don't know who the brother was. You know, he was one of the brews, you know.
But he was part. He was an offspring from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Exactly. And you know, real quick, just for fun, I put my great grandfather's picture through Chat GPT and ask it, reimagine this image of Zechariah as an ancient Israelite in traditional form. And it was kind of interesting. Just, you know,
do you have that picture?
It's on my phone. I'll send it to you.
You should. That was been a good one. Well, brother, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing this with us. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I hope you were inspired to not only to learn from it, but do your own studies. Go ahead and reach out. If you will, could you drop your email in the chat so everybody want to reach out and in fact, let me see, can I get it? I think I got your email out here. And if you want to reach out to them, and you know, I know you have your classes you got to teach, and then, you know, but you get ready to be off for a couple weeks, ain't you?
Yeah, gonna have about 3 weeks off. So just kind of sit back, study, do a little bit of genealogy, you know, get into the word. But Brother Brian, I put it in our StreamYard chat. If you could copy and paste that.
All right, great. I'm gonna go back there and get it. Give me 1 second. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm dropping it in the chat right now, guys. If you want to reach out to him about finding more information about your DNA, that's his email. You can reach him at that point. Guys, I want to thank you for being part of this. I hope this has blessed you. I hope this is encouraged you and enlighten you. And number one, know who you are. Know who you belong to. And know what he's done to. We had this conversation. I was on the live beforehand with some other people who do the same thing that I'm doing, and we're talking about, most of the people in the conversation came out of the ministry, came out of church, came out of being deep in the ministry church, and we were saying that although we didn't know his name, we didn't know that we've been lied to, but the Most High knew we was coming back to him. And he gave us breadcrumbs and answered our prayers and kept us going and showed mercy and love to us while we were yet sinners. That we are yet sinners, and it means sinners, where we're yet away from him, broken and broke his covenant. The Messiah laid his life down for us to call us back unto him. And when you leave tonight, guys, make sure you understand that those who your loved ones who are not yet in this awakening, your families, your friends, just keep praying for them, because the Most High got them. All we need to do is make sure that we are equipped, just like Brother Lau did, that we know who we are, and we can give account of who we are to them to awaken them up. Amen.
Amen.
And the last word, brother.
Man, just peace and blessings, family. Love on your family, appreciate your family, because like I said, this awakening is happening.
Yes.
And we just have to embrace it.
Guys, I want to thank you. I want to say to you now, peace and blessings, Shalom, and have a great rest of the weekend, and see you the next week. Shalom.
What do you think about this topic? Remember to be a Berean scholar, as it is written in the book of Acts 17 verses 11 to 12. Now the Bereans were more noble-minded than the Thessalonians, for they received the message with great eagerness and examined the scriptures every day to see if these teachings were true. It's time to deepen your understanding and see your reflection within the sacred pages. Please click subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay up to date with the Berean Scholar channel.